There is like, I don't know how many decades of service to humanity on this panel. And people always tell me, Cindy, you're such a patriot. And I always say, God forbid. You know, I am a lover of humanity that doesn't stop at the borders of the United States of America. But this is very humbling and inspiring. And as you can see, this is a very not diverse group. And you know, Kymone said you need our help, but you need to be the leaders. You need to tell us how the best thing we can do to help and not get in the way of your movement. So Carl Dix is a longtime revolutionary leader and founding member of the Revolutionary Communist Party, RCP. The foundation of his work is the new synthesis of communism developed by Bob Avakian, the leader of the RCP. In 1970, I did not know this about you, Carl, and it makes me love you more. In 1970, Carl was part of the Fort Lewis Six, the largest mass refusal of U.S. soldiers to go to Vietnam. For which he spent 2 years in Leavenworth Military Penitentiary. And if that's not love of humanity, I don't know what is. 1 year of it was in solitary confinement. In 1996, he co-founded the October 22nd Coalition to Stop Police Brutality, Repression, and the Criminalization of a Generation. In 2011, Carl, together with Dr. Cornel West, co-founded the Stop Mass Incarceration Network and initiated a campaign of civil disobedience to stop and frisk. This campaign took the effort to end that racist and illegitimate policy to a higher level. In 2014, Carl and Cornel called for making October a month of resistance to mass incarceration, police terror repression, and the criminalization of a generation. Carl went to Ferguson in August and in October, being arrested both times to stand with the people who were in the streets demanding justice for Michael Brown and to bring out the truth that it will take revolution and nothing less to end all the horrors of this system. So here we are honored to have Carl Dix.
Okay, I want to thank Cindy for that introduction, and I want to thank the people who put this on, World Can't Wait, Cindy, David Swanson, whoever did it. Glad you did it, because look, we gotta not only dig into these things, but we gotta bring them together. And can we bring up the first image? Because we're talking about targeted killings here in this country, but also around the world. And I want to begin by talking about two weddings. One, the wedding of Sean Bell and Nicole Paltry, that was scheduled to happen November 25th, 2006. I say scheduled to happen because Sean Bell was murdered by New York City police officers the morning that he was supposed to be married later on in the day, after a bachelor party when they surrounded his car with drawn weapons and then fired 50 shots into the car. The other wedding I want to talk about is the wedding of Ayad Neev and Rutba Saba. This wedding occurred in May of 2004 in the Iraqi desert village, and I'm going to try to get this right, Mogra El Deeb. This wedding did occur, but then when the wedding party gathered afterward, it was hit with a U.S. airstrike, killing the newly married couple and dozens of people who had come to participate in the celebration of this joyous event. Now, this was an airstrike that the U.S. said was directed at a bad guy, someone that they had to take out to keep America and Americans safe. They later were forced to admit that, oh, it was a wedding party. We made a mistake. But it's a mistake that they make frequently with their airstrikes and their drone strikes, having taken out more than half a dozen wedding parties. This is something that Barack Obama increased upon becoming president, because George Bush carried out a lot of airstrikes, including drone missile strikes, destroyed whole villages. But let's be clear, Obama became the president and carried out even more airstrikes and many more drone missile strikes than George Bush did. All the while talking about, I'm targeting bad guys, I'm keeping you safe by destroying wedding parties, blowing up whole villages. Now, we got to talk about this, because they tell us, well, we carry out close surveillance and we make precision strikes. But the reality is what I just talked about. Gatherings of people in Iraq at one point, now in Afghanistan, in Pakistan, in Yemen, and other countries, are reasons for a U.S. airstrike. And the precision weapon that they fire, drone missiles, carry payloads that can destroy whole villages. And in cities would take out whole blocks. That's their precision weaponry. So what they're talking about here is collective punishment unleashed against people who they hate and fear. So let's remember, that's the targeted killing that they carry out around the world. But what about the killings here in the United States? People have been talking about police murder, and that's what it is, because sometimes they say, well, you can't call it murder because the legal system, before they've come out exonerating the killer cop, they say you can't call it murder because the legal system hasn't adjudicated it yet. And then when they exonerate the killer cop, they say, well, you can't call it murder, he was found not guilty. Well, I call it murder because that's what it really is. When you kill unarmed innocent people for bullshit justifications or for no reason at all, that is murder. And I don't care if the cops are doing it, I don't care if you go back a few decades and the Klan and white mobs are doing it, it is murder. And it says something about this country that it doesn't consider that murder. But this is targeted killing. And I'm not saying they did surveillance and decided that Sean Bell was a terrorist, because all Sean Bell had to do was be black or Latino, perhaps a native person, an indigenous person to this country, and in the wrong place at the wrong time to be taken out. But this is targeted. And it comes down to the very workings of this system. Because Eugene was talking about the difference between the 80s and the 60s. Well, look, the globalization of the imperialist economy was a chase after maximum profits, but it has great ramification for people on both ends of that. The people in Bangladesh and the other countries where this productive capacity and factories get taken to get worked for much less pay, in much more dangerous conditions and much harder than anyone in this country would be worked in, so it's greater profit for the capitalists. But on this end, it leaves generations of people growing up in the inner cities without legitimate means to survive and raise families. And their approach to that is not, oh, we didn't realize this would happen. Let's retool the economy. Let's train these people for jobs in the new economy that develops. No, their approach to it is a program of suppression. Unleash the police force as occupying armies. Pass laws, enact policies that criminalize the people in these inner cities. And look, I am not hyping nothing up here. Let's look at that crack powder cocaine disparity. Used to be 100 to 1, the penalty. You catch a kid with 5 grams of crack, they would get the same penalty as somebody who had 500 grams of powder cocaine. Now 500 grams, you dealing. 5 grams of crack, you trying to get high. Why the difference in penalty? Why the disparity in penalty? And see, there were scientists who were saying, well, you know, scientifically these are the same drug. There's no difference there. The difference is who uses it, who you can catch up in it, and a way that you could criminalize inner city youth. Now, why would they want to do that? Well, let's go back to Richard Nixon. Boo, hiss. I'm doing my own response up here. Okay. He said in one of his cabinet meetings, the problem is the blacks, and we have to devise a solution that doesn't acknowledge that that's what we're dealing with. And then very quickly launched the first modern war on drugs that was to be fought only in black and Latino and other inner city communities. In other words, we have these people who rose up in the 60s, rocked our whole system back on its heels, and sparked other people to join in, and we're on the spearhead of a broader revolutionary movement that scared the shit out of them. They don't want to see that happen again. So they have in effect launched a counterinsurgency before the insurgency can begin. They want to catch up these young black, young Latino, and men, but yes, increasingly women too, are being criminalized, demonized, hit with laws and policies that target them. And I guess I have to say something about Obama here, because he said when he came into office he was going to do something about that powder, crack, cocaine disparity, and he actually did do something. It is no longer 100 to 1. He reduced it to 18 to 1. It's still scientifically the same drug. The penalty, though, has been reduced. It's not as disparate. Now let me explain to you what he just did. They stuck a knife deep in your back. Then they said, oh, this is terrible, this is horrible, we have to do something about this. Let's pull it out a little bit. Not let's take it out and fix the wound, let's pull it out a little bit. Malcolm X told you about that, and are you going to celebrate when they pull the knife out a little bit, or are you going to say, not fucking enough? And you know what I'm going to say. See, so this is what we're dealing with, and we are talking about targeted killings here with a very real purpose that link in directly with the targeted killings around the world, because it is a matter of keeping a global U.S. empire in effect and dealing with real threats to that empire and potential threats to that empire and perceived threats to that empire. So what do you do about that? Well, Cindy has already given you one level of my answer. It's going to take revolution, nothing less, to end this horror of wars for empire, targeted killings around the world, but also this program of suppression and control, which is concentrated in the unleashing of the police to murder people and get away with it. You know, because sometimes people say, well, the police are out of control. Well, they were never supposed to be under our control. This thing of like sworn to protect and serve, well, what are they protecting and serving? Not the people, but the system that rules over the people. And that's the job that they're fulfilling, and they are doing that job the way it's supposed to be done. That's why they never get punished when they murder people, because those are the people you're supposed to be keeping them under control, and you gotta kill some of them, you gotta brutalize them, you gotta harass them. They are oriented, trained, and rewarded for doing that, and punished when they don't. And we can talk in the discussion about some cops that I know of who have been run off of the force and what got them run off. I will give you a clue. It was not brutality and murder that got them run off of the force. Think about that. So it's going to take revolution, nothing less. And look, we in the Revolutionary Communist Party are building a movement for revolution. We have the leadership for this movement in Bob Avakian, the leader of the Revolutionary Communist Party. We got a strategy and a plan for it. We even got a vision for it that we have concretized in a constitution for a future socialist republic in North America. Because we want people to know what we're aiming for, but we also want people to stop thinking that we have to just look for the best within this setup. To start thinking, dreaming, and acting towards how do we get out of this setup. And we can talk more about that. The other level of it, of what we do, is mass and massive resistance. And this is really very important. Because on one level, people around the world need to know that there are people in this country who are not down with this government, this system, and the crimes that it commits against humanity around the world. People need to see that, they need to know that, they need to be clear on that. You know, because you look at this from outside, and if you don't see nobody standing up and resisting, you could get the sense that that drone missile that hit me, well, I guess all the Americans are with that, because I don't see nobody standing up. We cannot let people think that. We have to manifest this resistance, and we have to do it in ways that it gets to the eyes of the whole world. And in this country, mass and massive resistance is required.